Now by Michael Fabricant, who is a Conservative MP for Lichfield. Michael, you've been from the beginning a sort of very robust defender of Boris Johnson, but this doesn't really sound very good, does it?
Well, I was saying to Tom Harwood about 2 weeks ago in this very studio that what there needs to be, in my view, are tighter controls in number 10 Downing Street itself. And that means having its own government department, an office of Prime Minister, and not being part of the wider Cabinet Office, where all the management are based in a completely different building in Whitehall. And that seems to be very much what Sue Gray is saying. And I think now the question will be, what actually is the responsibility that lays directly at the feet of Boris Johnson, and what lays at the feet of the civil service itself? Now, this is not blaming the civil service, but it is being realistic about the situation as reported by Sue Gray.
I mean, my previous guest, Claire Pearsall, who has worked as a SPAD at the highest levels of government departments, said, well, this drinking culture is abnormal. This is not something she's seen when she was a SPAD at the Home Office. The fact that the word excessive is in there, excessive consumption of alcohol, suggests to me that there's a load of drunks running the country in Downing Street. Surely that is not acceptable. If I came to work and started popping vino in the studios of GBNews, I think I'd be on a very short tenure indeed. Is this going to make you think again about whether the Prime Minister should be in position? Because surely the buck does stop with Boris, and he does have a reputation for being a bit of a bon vivant.
Well, it does seem that this drinking culture in 10, 11 and 12 Downing Street is something that has been going on even since back in Gordon Brown's day, certainly in David Cameron's day, where people used to have a Friday night drink when the boss had gone home, because, of course, the Prime Minister is either in his constituency or at Chequers. So it all comes back down to, where does the buck stop? Does it stop with the Prime Minister? Should the Prime Minister know if there are people drinking after he's gone? Or could you argue that, in fact, that the civil servants didn't have tight enough controls about what was going on in that building? And that's the point. The senior management are based in 70 Whitehall, which is a separate building altogether. And Sue Gray makes the powerful point that maybe there hasn't been enough control at all of the civil service in Downing Street. And now, because, there are over 100 offices, there are hundreds of people employed in that complex, it should be a government department in its own right. Something, incidentally, that Tony Blair suggested, but sadly didn't put into place.
I'm going to draw a stark contrast here. You're talking about the civil service. I'm going to draw a stark contrast between this culture that's being reported by Sue Gray in 10 Downing Street and trying to imagine that existing under, say, Theresa May, whose greatest crime was running through a wheat field. It's hard to imagine Theresa May as even opening a bottle of Schlur in 10 Downing Street, whereas this is Boris Johnson, who's often spoken about his adoration for cheese and claret, contributing to the poor health that wound him up in hospital with COVID.
Let's get this straight. I mean, there are plenty of official receptions that go on at number 10 Downing Street, and I've seen Theresa May, quite properly, with everyone else, drinking either champagne, or maybe it was Schlur, but anyway, it looked like champagne. No, the whole question is, was the environment right that in the evening on a Friday night, you gave the GBNews analogy. Now, I used to work years ago for the BBC, and there was a BBC club, and I think there still is a BBC club, and we all used to go to it at the end of a hard day's work. This is what seemed to be happening on the Friday nights with these mythical, but actually true, cases where people were walking along with wine, which they bought at Tesco or the Co-op, and taking into Downing Street.